Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Grace Holland. March Madness is on, and all three Triangle teams will take the court today and Friday. Duke, NC State, and UNC's men's college basketball teams are competing in the NCAA tournament. Fans are following a lot of storylines and hoping their team make it through the brackets to the final. WRAL sports anchor Chris Lee is following it all for us. Chris, thanks for being here.
Absolutely, no problem. This is my favorite time of the year. It's when the weather starts to get warm, the flowers start to bloom, and the basketball flowers start to bloom. So I absolutely love this time.
Yep, the court is heating up, definitely. So when are each of these teams going to be playing, and who are they facing?
So tonight, UNC and NC State will both be playing. Carolina has the earlier matchup. They're going to take on Wagner at 2:45. That's going to come from Charlotte. They are in the West bracket, but because they're the number one seed, they get the benefit of playing close to home early on before they head out west. So they'll have that matchup, and it's going to be favorable for Carolina. NC State has a later matchup. They're in Pittsburgh right now. They're taking on Texas Tech. Now, NC State is an 11 seed. Texas Tech is a 6 seed. So Texas Tech is technically on paper the better team. That one will start later on around like 9:40 tonight. So it'll be very interesting. And then Duke will play on Friday, tomorrow, against Vermont. That'll tip off at 7:10. So very interesting matchups for all of them. And I would say that all of these games are winnable. Will they all win it? I don't know. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, that's the thing about March Madness, right? Is kind of anything can happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what do we need to know about each of these teams coming into the tournament? I feel like we've all been talking about NC State coming off of the ACC tournament, but just kind of where are all these teams at right now?
There's different motivations for all the teams. For Carolina, it's more so a continuation of the excellence they've already shown. They've deserved to getting the number one seed. They did really well. They were supposed to win the ACC tournament, but of course they fell into a buzzsaw in NC State.
Here, a historic and astounding run by the Wolfpack. NC State wins the ACC championship for the first time since 1987 with a victory over UNC.
Which is also what happened to Duke.
NC State pulling off an upset tonight over Duke. The madness of March certainly has begun.
For Carolina, this is a program that historically has won 7 national titles. They really propped that up, and that's something that they are very much so proud of. They want to continue that excellence and get 8. For Duke, they lost their last 2 games, right? They lost their game against Carolina at Duke for their senior night to end the regular season. Then they wanted to start over for the ACC tournament and make a run and kind of get some momentum. But they ran into NC State, and we know what NC State did. So for Duke, they just want to get back on the board and win. NC State has been saying that this is a new season.
It's 0-0. Everybody's record is 0-0, and we took that approach as if, it's a fresh start, and that was the foundation for us to get momentum.
They've completely left the regular season behind. They lost their last 4 games of the regular season, then won 5 in a row, which they had to win to even get a chance to play in the NCAA tournament. So for them, they want to continue the magic and try to make another run at a national title.
All right. And so what have we seen this week in practice leading up to this, and what are the coaches and players on each of these teams saying?
So we will hear from Duke later on today, but for NC State and Carolina, a lot of what I just echoed before. For NC State, they felt like they've always had the talent and the ability to be here, but they've had some letdowns. And, we don't really understand what those or how those letdowns came about. They know how it came about. They just say that they weren't playing their best basketball. And so we saw what their best basketball could look like in Washington, D.C. So now they're glad that they're here and they made it, and they want to try to make a run for it. Carolina is a very interesting thing because for their group, you have R.J. Davis and Armando Bacot, who've been there for multiple years. 5 for Bacot, 4 for Davis. And then they have guys who've transferred in from other programs, and they came to North Carolina specifically to be in this moment because they didn't come from programs that were expected to go this far. And Davis and Bacot, They got a little taste when they lost in the national championship game a couple years ago versus Kansas, and they came up short. So this is about trying to finish the story for Carolina and to get to the top of that mountain once again.
All right, let's take a quick break right there, and we'll be right back. Okay, so Chris, before the break, we were talking about how the teams and players are feeling going into the NCAA tournament.
Mm-hmm.
How are the fans feeling for each of these teams?
Definitely NC State fans. It's been tough for NC State the last 20 or so years. I mean, it's been rare, and so when they do make it to the NCAA tournament, it's a treat.
Julian, you hear that? That's the Wolfpack crowd cheering for their team that just did the impossible.
These guys are some real fighters. And we're looking forward to seeing wherever we are in the tournament. We're going to kick some butt, man. We're going to kick some butt. Go back. Go back. Come on.
I was at State when we last won the ACC tournament. I was a student in 1987. There's a lot of pent-up emotion.
I'm sure.
Oh, my God. I have been crying.
We're reliving history.
Reliving history.
It's been a while since they've had a deep run in the tournament, so State fans are just ready and hoping that this is the team that can possibly do that. They have a tough Texas Tech team to try to do that against, and if they were to go further, they have potentially Kentucky, Florida, and Marquette, and so it doesn't get easier for them, but those fans are super excited for the opportunity. Duke and UNC fans, this is what happens every year. Mm-hmm. They're there every year, and they are playing for national championships. And it's rare when either one of those teams misses the tournament. So this is where fans are normally at, and now they just want them to go forward and finish the story.
If we're going to take a loss, it's better to take it now, and I know that they'll rally for the championship and March Madness, and that's really what's important. So
guess what? We're coming back. We're coming back for the championship, and I know my team will pull through. I went to school with Hubert Davis, so I know that we're going to pull through.
For Duke, it's been even longer since they've won a national title. It's been since 2015, so they're going on. This is 9 years now. Carolina, it's been 7 years since 2017. So it's been a little bit of a drought in this area as far as national titles, and so both of those teams are looking, and those fans are looking to celebrate once again.
Right, and I think about a couple years ago when they both ended up in the Final Four against each other, and now we're in a situation where both of those teams have newer coaches trying to navigate that. So how does that kind of play into it?
Yeah, well, Hubert Davis, that was his first year when they
right.
met, but that was also Coach K's final year, and John Shire took over afterwards. And so I think for Hubert Davis, he's going to lean on the experience that he had from his first year. And then also, he played a lot as a player at Carolina when he was there. So he has something to lean on there. Same thing for John Shire. He won a national championship in 2010 as a player and did very well for that team, for a team that wasn't expected to win that year. Now you look at a Duke team that's not necessarily expected to win this year. And so if anybody knows how to get there, it's John Shire. So I'll be interested in seeing how he tries to motivate his team throughout this.
Yeah, and so the other new thing that's going on this year, at least here in North Carolina, is that this is the first tournament with online sports betting legal in our state. So
yeah,
how is that kind of changing the conversation?
It gives people extra things to kind of pay attention to. I think already in North Carolina, there's such a rich history of college basketball, and all three of these teams have all won national championships before. So all these fan bases expect that, and they expect greatness. But with sports betting, now I think it gets people who may not have a dog in the fight to pay attention to certain things that maybe they wouldn't have paid attention to before. Of course, if you're from North Carolina, you usually have to pick, are you Duke, North Carolina, NC State? But there's a lot of people who've moved here who have literally no dog. They might be Michigan State fans or UCLA fans or whatever, but they're happy that they're in an area with great college basketball. So now sports betting can bring them in on the conversation, and so they can kind of pick and choose where they fall, and I think it's something that's going to be pretty exciting for fans.
Yeah, and you bring up such a great point that we have so many people moving here, and to be in the situation where there's sports betting to get you interested in it, and then to have all three of our triangle teams in, I mean, that's a really unique situation that we're in.
Absolutely.
So how far do we expect these teams to get in the tournament, and is it possible they could play each other? I know it's really rare.
Ooh, okay, so here's what could possibly happen. The South bracket is where Duke and NC State both are.
Mm-hmm.
They would both have to win their next 3 games to face each other for the winner of the South bracket in the Elite Eight for a chance to go to the Final Four.
Wow.
So, again, as I was talking about NC State's road, I mean, if they get past Texas Tech, you're looking at possibly going against Kentucky 2 days after that, then Florida next week, and then possibly Marquette. Like, those are hard games.
Yeah.
And so they're going to have all the magic in the world. And then if they do that, and if Duke wins their 3 games, then you're going against Duke then. And Duke has a pretty tough road as well. Vermont is not going to be a pushover. They're a mid-major team, but they're not going to be a pushover. And then possibly having James Madison or Wisconsin the next round, and then looking ahead to Houston possibly for the Sweet 16. So it's a tough road, but maybe Duke and NC State, go through each other. On the other side of the bracket is UNC. So if they were to meet Duke or NC State, it would be in a national championship game.
Wow.
That would be very interesting if that were to happen.
Yeah.
And so we saw Duke versus North Carolina in the Final Four. We've never seen Duke versus North Carolina for a national title. This area would completely shut down.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's crazy. It's unfathomable what those teams have to win 5 games before they get to that one. And then who knows? Maybe it's not Duke. Maybe it's NC State versus Carolina for a national championship game. And we saw it happen the last time NC State played Carolina for a championship. So, hey, we'll see what happens, but there's a lot of great possibilities.
A lot of great possibilities and a lot of chaos
Oh,
that
yeah.
can happen between now and then.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Chris. And if you've listened to this podcast on WRAL.com or the WRAL News app, you can also find it in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Follow the show so you don't miss an episode. Thanks for listening.